How's it going, guys? Today we have another great day of installing some cool fast parts. Today we'll be installing meth injection. That's right, we're going to cool down those intake air temperatures and start making some real horsepower. Stay tuned, guys. First things first, we need to remove the ozone sensor. And now we're going to get back to the 10 millimeters nuts. There's 3 of them. With the cabin air intake removed, we are actually going to cut it right here so we have a nice flat edge. And then we're going to epoxy this plastic right here. This is going to give us the extra room to install the canister on the car.
Alright guys, so since we're installing water meth on this supercharger, we need a good spot to install it. So we're going to be installing the water injection nozzle right here. A lot of times people will use a throttle body spacer, but since we were pulling the supercharger off already, we figured we would drill it in right here for a more stealthy install. So I marked out where I wanted it to be, and the first thing I'm going to do is take a center punch, and I will punch it right there. So I mark where I'm going to be drilling, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I'll be taking a small drill bit to pre-drill the hole. Now that I've got my pre-drill hole done, I'm just going to go back in and clean it up a little bit. Now after that, I'll be taking the correct size drill bit. So these, the nozzles are all 1/8 inch NPT, so I get the corresponding drill bit, which, if I remember correctly, it's 21/64. Alright, so now we got our hole there in the correct size. So the next step is going to be to tap that hole to the correct 1/8 inch NPT size. So first things first, I'm going to put some oil here on the on my tab. Shot out a little fast there, just to make sure that it all goes smoothly. Now obviously you want to make sure this is nice and square. Just like you learned in shop class, you go a few turns in and then a half turn out to break the chips off. Alright guys, so now we're going to be installing the nozzle, and for our specific application we will be using the 1000cc nozzle. This is out of the AEM kit. So to do that, since it's a NPT thread, you shouldn't need any sort of sealant on the threads there. And you're just going to want to get it tightened up, but not too tight, to strip the threads out. Alright, and then that's installed. Obviously you're going to want to clean out the supercharger, vacuum it out, get it all cleaned up, and then you'll be ready to install it. So after checking the voltages on these, we found that there's a 20 amp fuse, which is closest to the driver's side of the car, and that is only 12 volt on when the ignition is on. sticker down in the hole. That's the sauce right there. Bop. Right in the sauce. Got the sauce. That's how it smells like. It smells kind of good. It smells like speed. Ooh, it's kind of bald. Oh.
And they said that water never got back there, but...
Okay, so we have everything installed and plumbed up, and before we put the rain tray back on and hook the hoses up, we're going to test it to make sure there's no leaks and everything functions properly. So we got our hose and we're just going to spray it back into our reservoir, and there's a test button on your controller, so let's see what happens. Oh yeah, that's the sauce right there, guys. That's what you're going to want. No leaks, nothing. We're ready for some boost.
Okay, go ahead.
Alright guys, so we got it all installed, and now that it's installed, I'm going to run you through how we've got it all set up. So in the center here, you can mount this wherever. Some people mount it inside, but this is the controller for the water methanol setup. Different brands will have different types of controllers, but this is the one we went with. And for wiring for that, we are tapping into a 12-volt constant inside this box here, going off of one of those posts. It is grounded up here on a pre-existing bolt. And then for the arming switch in here, like we stated in the video earlier, we found a spot that is a switched 12 volt. For other wiring that we have going inside the cabin, we have two wires for the LED, which will indicate when there's an error with the system or you're running low on coolant. We have two wires then running down to the bottom of the tank for the coolant level sensor, and then also two to the pump. From that, we've got the hose running from our tank to our pump, which is located under the cabin air intake filter, and then running up to our nozzle here, our 1000cc nozzle that is mounted on the top of the supercharger, wherever you may mount it. And then we have a boost tap here with a hose which gives a boost reference to our controller, which allows it to operate correctly.
How you feel about it?
Oh, I'm very excited.
How much boost do we think we can hit?
Ooh, I don't know. All the boost?
40 PSI?
40 PSI?
Good. Jam hard.